Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. Today I have a very exciting video. One of my pen pals, Alison, over at Little Coco Studio did an ink swap with me, and she sent me 7 samples of ink, and today we're going to go through all of them. They're all inks that I personally have never tried, and this will actually be my first impressions. I haven't even swatched them yet. So I do want to mention, for supplies in this video, I have officially moved into a new notebook. This is an A5 sterling ink notebook with the new Sanzen Tomoe River paper. So we'll get to see how these inks behave on the newer paper, since the old Tomoe River paper is no longer available. Just what's out in the world is what there is. Unfortunately, that paper will seriously be missed. Anyways, also for supplies, I have my Olive Frogs Designs sample vial holder, the 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗁𝗁 dip pen here with the fude nib. I will probably end up taking the feed out depending on how much I want to do, but that's what this is. I have my dropper, and then I also have my little acrylic stamp block, and I am just going to go ahead and get started because I can't contain my excitement any longer. And we're going to start with the first one here, which is Sailor Ink Studios 573. And wow, okay, so this color looks to be kind of like a terracotta, like burnt orange red with a little bit of a brownness to it. This is really nice. I am vibing with this ink already. The flow of it seems to be pretty consistent with most of the Sailor Ink Studio inks I've tried. Obviously, first impressions, I haven't put this in a pen, but with the fude nib, I definitely can see that it may be a little bit drier. Not so much so that it would be a problem though. The next ink she sent me is one that has been pretty popular on the YouTubes recently, and this is Teranishi's Opera Rose. I personally have never tried this one. I have avoided the hype because you can only get them in a full bottle, so I'm excited to try this and see if it really is worth all of the hype that I have been seeing. I can definitely see the hype with this one. The color of this is gorgeous. It's almost like a muddy brown pink, which I think is pretty consistent with most of people's thoughts, but it has a bit of a red, slight almost red to orange lean to it in some areas. It's quite nice. Putting it next to the previous one, Sailor Ink Studios 573, they look really close together, not gonna lie, in person, but they do have subtle differences. So I'm interested to see again how they compare when they're completely dried down. But I will say the flow of writing with the Opera Rose was much wetter than with the Sailor ink. So this probably is a pretty juicy ink. Obviously haven't put it into pen, so can't really speak to it. But with the fude nib on this Sailor dip pen, it was very nicely flowing. The next ink sample she sent me is from Birmingham Pen Company, which we all know has been a brand favorite for me for right now. And this is called Extradimensional Umber. And I believe this is also part of their atomic line, but I'll have to double check. Okay, first of all, Alison, if you watch this, thank you so much for sending me the rest of your sample of this, because I am head over heels already. The second this comes back in stock on Birmingham Pen Company, I am totally buying a bottle, and I will definitely send you another sample back because this is so nice. Sorry, the color of Extradimensional Umber is this warm caramelly to chocolate brown, and there's definitely green sheen going on for sure. But the color of this is so beautiful. It's like saturated and rich. It honestly reminds me of like a really nice creamy cup of coffee that's not like so creamy that it's white, but like, I don't know, like maybe like the dulce de leche like sauce even. It just has this richness to it. It is so beautiful. Wow. I'm very excited to put this in a pen at some point, but with the flow on the fude nib on the 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗁𝗁 dip pen, it was very nice, very easygoing, no problems. I'd probably say it's closer to the consistency of the Teranishi Opera Rose than that of the Sailor ink, but I love the color of this Extradimensional Umber. Just wow. Next up, she sent me another ink that I feel has been pretty popular in recent videos I've seen, and this is Lennon Toolbar's Sesame Oil, and I'm really interested to see how light this is because I feel like it's really light in most of the swatches I've seen in. So first impressions on this one, it is light, but it's not so light that it's illegible. It's actually a very nice medium brown color. It has a little bit of a yellowness to it, even a little bit of a green lean. I want to see what this looks like shaded all the way down when it's dry, but wet, it definitely has a little bit of a yellow and a little bit of a greenness to it. I love the name. I feel like this represents this ink very well for sesame oil and makes me want to go cook some stir fry right now because that just sounds really yummy. I did struggle a little bit with the Fude nib on this ink for some reason. I don't know if it's just the angle I was at or if it's just this ink is really wet, but I did struggle to get it to kind of write in a thinner line in some areas. I will say I love the color of this. I really want to compare it to Ferris Press's Oyster Hour because I feel like they're really close, but I think this one might be a little bit darker. So maybe in the future when I get to browns, I'll compare these two together. Next up, we have a Robert Oster ink, and this one is Toffee. And first up, this is a wet ink. Oh my goodness. I was not expecting that the Fude nib on this pen to drop down that much ink when I started writing. It's juicy for sure. The color of this actually is true to a toffee color for me. It looks like that delicious, you know, Heath bar chocolate with a little bit of a toffee center, even English toffee. It's a beautiful color. It's very rich, much like the Extradimensional Umber though, but this one doesn't look like it has any sheening going on. Definitely a juicy ink. It looks like there's going to be a little bit of a gray to black shade with it. Obviously, I'm going to wait until it totally dries to really nail down on that shading, but the color of it is a very nice, very warm, even has a bit of an orangeness to it, but it's very lovely and a very wet ink for sure. And then we have another Robert Oster ink, and this one is called Khaki. Ooh, and this one's a very lovely, like, olivey green color. One of my favorites. If you've been on this channel for a minute, you probably know that. Actually, a lot of these inks are in total range of my favorite inks. But Khaki is definitely more of a yellow green olive. It's very nice. It's not as wet as the Toffee, first off. It's definitely not as, like, I don't want to say watery feeling, but definitely doesn't have as high of a flow. But the shading from what's showing up in the writing already is lovely. It has almost like a brown haloing going on. Really interested to see how this one dries down too. Love the color. Honestly, if I didn't have some other olive green colors in bottles, I would probably pick this one up because this is a lovely green olive color. And then the last ink she sent me is by Lamy, and this is Violet Blackberry, which I believe is one of their newer releases. And holy cow, this is a dark ink. I was not expecting it to be almost black. At least initial wet swatch, it looks pretty much black. There is a little bit of a purple lean to it. Maybe that's the violet part coming through. And as it's drying in front of me while I'm talking about this, it is already sheening. So we know it's going to be a high sheen ink. Flow-wise, with a dip pen, it has a silkiness to it. It's probably the Sheen. The Extradimensional Umber had a very similar feel to it. That has kind of like that silky texture. Very nice. I will say this one is a pretty wet ink as well. Definitely wetter than the Birmingham Pen Company's Extradimensional Umber and wetter than the Khaki, but not as wet as the Toffee or the Sesame oil. At least that's how it feels to me with this dip pen. Obviously, once you put it in a fountain pen, it's going to differ depending on the nib style and feed and all that kind of stuff. So just take all that with a grain of salt. But I do feel like this one is a pretty juicy ink. Color-wise, I like it. I like it a lot. I'm definitely a fan of that off black color, and I do like my off black colors to have a little bit of a fun quality just to make them a little bit more, I don't know, special on the page. And this one definitely fits in that category, especially with the sheen that it has going on right now. Okay, I'm gonna let these finish drying down. Allison, again, if you watch this, thank you so much for sending these my way, for swapping with me. I love all of these colors, and I definitely want full bottles of a couple of them already, so there is that. But I'm gonna, again, let these dry down, and I'll see you guys in a second, and we'll do some close-ups. Okay, I am back. Let's go ahead and zoom in, do some close-ups, because I'm very excited at what I'm looking at right now. So starting off, we had Sailor Ink Studios 573. Can we just appreciate the shading? Wow. So the base of it definitely looks to be more of like a orange color like this, but the shading goes almost to like a pink, maybe a red pink, and the sheen has a bit of like a green black appearance to it. It is so pretty. I really like this one. This one's really fabulous. I think this would do really well as like an autumny ink or even like a late summer ink. I may have to put this in a pen in August, if I'm being honest, because this is so beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Then we had Teranishi Opera Rose. I can totally see the hype of this one. In writing, I'm underwhelmed, if I'm being honest, but in the swatch, oh my gosh. Swatch wise, it has a bit of a purpleness to it, but still has that bit of a brown pink as the base, which I think is truly what the writing is like. It's more of like that dusty pink, brown pink color, but the shading in the swatch has a little bit of a purpleness to it, maybe even a little bit of an orange to it. This is on the Sanzen paper, so I'm really curious to see what this would look like on other papers. I think if you used a lot of Midori paper, like the Traveler's Notebooks or anything like that, this ink would look stunning. I think if it had a little bit of a warmness to it, it would make it an absolute stunner. I like it, but I'm glad I got to try it before I bought a bottle because I don't think I love it enough for a bottle. I think I like the one from the Diamine Purple ink vent, Cashmere Rose, a little bit better, just because I think it has a bit more pinkness to it, but this is still really lovely. Then we had Extradimensional Umber, and I am still just fangirling over here. Holy cow, wow. The ink is definitely more of a brown, that rich brown color, caramelly, toffee, dulce de leche, like just, I really like this one. It has dark spots, like dark shading, so this darker brown shading is showing up in this little bit of a writing sample here, and the green sheen is showing up as well. I honestly really like how it turned out in my doodles with the shading. I just, wow. Okay, Birmingham Pen Company has just taken my life over at this point. I love this brand of ink. The second this ink comes back in stock, I'm definitely getting a bottle because this is really nice. This is like if SBRE Brown had a baby with Emerald Fusion by Birmingham Pen Company. That's what this reminds me of, because the base of it is definitely more of that orangey, like brown color. Maybe even Pelican Brilliant Brown is kind of close to this. This is much darker than Pelican Brilliant Brown though, and a bit more brown. But I don't know, there's just something about this one that I really like. Then we had Lennon Toolbar's Sesame Oil. I really like this one too. I was a huge fan of the Ferris Press Oyster Hour. I actually love putting that one in my broad Kaveco macchiato pen. Probably going to put this one in the broad macchiato pen too and see how they compare. But I feel like this one has a bit more of a grayness to it, but also a little bit more of a yellowy green to it still. It has a bit more of a color dynamic shift. It looks like it has some sheen in the swatch here, but I don't think it's sheen. I think it's just pooling where the ink settled, so maybe shading, but nothing is coming out that dark in the writing. So I don't know if that's just something unique to this swatch. It's a lovely color though. I really like this brown. It's very nice and legible, but still light, like a tan color. It's unique. It's definitely unique. Then we had Robert Oster's Toffee. I don't know. Okay, yeah, you can definitely see the little bit of a black sheen that this has. The sheen did not really come across in the thinner writing over here, but it's definitely in the swatch and in the very thick, juicy writing that came off of the Fude nib when I started. So I think this would definitely sheen in a broader nibbed pen, even to a stub. I like the color of this. I think I like Extradimensional Umber a bit more, but the color of the Toffee is another rich brown, has a bit of a red orange to it. Definitely reminds me of the like Heath chocolate bars or any kind of English toffee candies. I think the naming of this ink is very well done. I like it. I like it a lot. Then we have Robert Oster's Khaki. This one I'm seriously tempted to get a full bottle of just because I love my green olivey inks. I'm trying to tell myself I have so many already. I don't need another one. But the flow of this one was really nice. Not as wet as this one when I was writing with it, but the flow was nice. The color is definitely more of that yellow green khaki. It does have a bit of a black sheen going on in the swatch. Nothing like that going on in the writing though. I Yes, I really like this color. I think this would do really well as a green for fall too. So I feel like a lot of these colors are really good for fall. So Alison, you're just prepping me for all of the inks that I'm going to ink up in fall this year. Then we had Lamy's Violet Blackberry. As you can see, almost the whole swatch sheened, which I was just, you know, stunned at watching it dry, right? It's just part of the fun of swatching inks. But this is definitely very dark, much darker than I was anticipating. It almost has a black to it with a slight purple lean, but I do think the color of this is actually a very dark purple with the yellow to like goldish black sheen that it has. In the writing, you can kind of see a little bit of the sheen. It's not super strong, obviously not as strong as in a swatch, but I think if you used like a stub nib or any kind of like calligraphy nib, it would showcase the sheen very well and also how dark the purple gets. I would love to see this if it could get a little bit lighter in the shading, so have a little bit of the shading with the sheen, but overall I really like the color of this one too. Overall, I'm really happy with all of this selection. Alison, I feel like we have very similar tastes when it comes to ink choices, so I'm very happy with all of these. Full bottle wise, I definitely think I would get Birmingham Pen Company's Extradimensional Umber, no question. I really love the shading with the sheen on this one. It's so beautiful. And then I think I'd pick 573 over Opera Rose if I were to get a full bottle of this. I don't think I write with this color enough to warrant a full bottle, but if I had to pick one over the other, I think I'd go with the Sailor ink just because the shade of it is a bit more me. It's not as, I don't know. I feel like the Teranishi Opera Rose is a little bit too brown leaning. I feel like I like the orange brown a little bit better. And then on the other page, I really like the Khaki. The Khaki is so beautiful. It's just, I have so many others, right? Like you don't need another bottle of the same color ink, Danielle, just get it through your head. But the Lennon Toolbar Sesame Oil is another one that I think is really quite beautiful. If you have a favorite on the page, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. If you've tried any of these inks, do you have a favorite pen that you've put them in? I just really enjoy swatching these inks, and I'm very grateful for Alison and pen friends and pen pals who send these my way. These are so much fun to play with. I'm excited to get to start this new journal with the sands and paper and see how inks change from my life since we are no longer with the original 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 paper, I think is how it's pronounced. It's the end of an era, the end of an era. Anyways, I want to thank you so much for watching, for joining me here today. If you're interested in any of the other ink swatches, I will have a playlist in the description. I do lots of different ink swatching videos, explorations, pen pals, and recently I've been working on getting ready for 30 inks 30 days. So stay tuned for that in July. All that being said, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.